On the field, inside the clubhouse, and everything in between. This is Brewers Weekly. Here's Dominic Cotroneo.
Woo-wee! What a beautiful day in Phoenix, Arizona. I cannot say the same in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Not to make everybody jealous, for that matter. Hi, everybody. I'm Dominic Cotroneo. Thanks for making us a part of your Thursday night Brewers Weekly. This is, get this, the last Brewers Weekly where we will not actually have a game to talk about until hopefully very late in October. Spring training games officially start tomorrow. Brewers will start on Saturday. And I'm here on the ground, in the desert, in the Valley of the Sun, getting you all the content you deserve. So what to expect over these next few weeks? We've got, obviously, time to get into the clubhouse, and the guys have been very accommodating to welcoming in the newcomer like me into the clubhouse. So we do have stuff in the works that I'm very, 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 very excited about and cannot wait to hit your ears. At some point by the end of next week will be the first episode of something we've been working on. So very excited about some of that stuff. We are going to lean on a lot of live sound, as in straight from the guys in the clubhouse, straight from Craig Counsell, straight from the new acquisitions. I really want to lean on, if you're listening live or if you're listening via podcast, to hear stuff you wouldn't be able to hear otherwise, because we are your only radio station that is actually boots on the ground here in Phoenix for the entirety of spring training. So keep that in mind as you think about your coverage for 2023 Brewers this season. The other thing we want to talk about, 855-616-1620. Again, 855-616-1620. That is the Old National Bank talk and text line. Old National Bank, get old. If you want to chime in on these live shows, you are always welcome to join in on the conversation, whatever we are talking about here on any given week. So we're live this week. We'll be live next week. And then the next couple of weeks will be recorded podcast version because, the Bucks are in the way. So let's give you the quick rundown. You may have seen it tweeted from my social earlier today. First thing we're going to talk about is just putting the Burn stuff to bed here in a moment. But the rest of the agenda, Tyler Naquin and Luke Voit are now Brewers. And their minor league deals will explain what this all means again, a quick roster refresh of what's going on. We'll talk about that a little bit later. We've got rule change reaction from Craig Counsell, from the players, from guys that are impacted by it, pitchers that are doing it. We saw Devin Williams throw a live session today with the pitch clock in action. Looked like it won't be an issue at all. So more on that a little bit later on. Bullpen battles, something that came up this week in camp with the news that Ethan Small is going to be maybe looked at as a reliever. More on that a little bit later on. Also, who cares what Vegas thinks? Vegas and Bet Online and some other sites, BetMGM, have already put out their win totals and their favorites and stuff like that. So I got a few of those Vegas numbers. And also, really excited about an interview with Robert Gasser, of course, the prospect acquired with the Josh Hader deal last year. He's the last remaining player in that deal, per se. But got 4 minutes with him the other day. Really excited for you to hear from him for the first time in his first big league camp. So before we get to all that stuff, I just want to take a moment to, kind of put things to bed with the Corbin Burns stuff and everything that's gone down in the week since we talked. So the last time that we were on a show was we learned the case went in the Brewers' favor. And now, since that, we had the whole discourse between, talking in the press of Burns saying he was not satisfied and had his relationship and things of that nature, and Twitter's blowing up and it made national news. And I'm not going to regurgitate the feelings there. I said what I said last week, saying that it's an optic. It's what it is. It's a tough optic, but arbitration flat out sucks. Like, as I've said over and over and over again, arbitration sucks. The business of baseball sucks. There was a great Twitter thread. I don't know if you saw this, but a Rays player, I'll retweet it here in just a moment. A Rays player actually went through arbitration and gave a whole detailed Twitter thread on what it was like, what his case was, things of that nature. So I'll retweet that here in just a moment, and I'll get into some of the details in a later date. But really, what I've reacted to with all of this And we got a chance to talk to Corbin one more time about it. I'm not going to keep asking Corbin about it, nor should most of the media, because we're over it. We're all over it. Arbitration cases come and go every single year, and they're not a big deal. It feels like a big deal when it's the best player on your team. I understand that. But literally, there will be another arbitration case next year. Like, I mean, you know, a lot of fans didn't react like this with Adrian Hauser's case last year. And I get it. It's a different case, different caliber player. But it just goes to show you there's going to be another arbitration cycle next season, another one after that. Arbitration just comes and goes. It's the tide. Some days it's high tide, and like, oh man, look at the seas. Some days it's low tide, and you can't go out fishing. And so it is, all right? I do want to kind of put it to bed. This is what Corbin Burns had to say to us, the media, one more time, just finally talking about arbitration, and, you know, let's let it come to pass, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, my job is to come in and you know, get ready to fill the ball, you know, come season. So, you know, my focus is obviously to get ready to go out and, you know, be healthy and make as many starts as I can, throw as many innings as I can, help the team win. You know, what's been said has been done, and so you know, now we're going to turn this focus toward you know, getting these guys, you know, all on the same page with the position players reporting tomorrow. You know, our team meeting tomorrow is obviously going to get everyone on the same page and get us going in the right direction. You know, a lot of new faces in here, so our job is to go out and get ready to compete come opening day.
That sounds like water under the bridge to me. It should sound like water under the bridge to you. It's over. We've moved on from it. What happened, happened. And I think Burns, the Brewers, front office, ownership, ready to move on and play some baseball. This is what happens, right? When we get so close to baseball, actually, we're literally talking about that with counsel today. Like, so close to baseball actually happening that, you know, we're kind of grasping at straws about the rule changes, and it's like, oh, we got to see games happen. You know, we just want to have games happen, right? So I think this story has run its course. I'm done talking about it unless there's another reason to talk about it. Okay, Corbin Burns lost his arbitration case. It happened. He's still a Brewer for this year and next year under contract. I can't control what's going to happen beyond that. Neither can you. We will see. But let's enjoy who is likely going to be your opening day starter in 2023 down at Wrigley, Corbin Burns. Okay, so we don't know when we're going to see him on a spring training mound yet. More on that to come a little bit later on in the show and what we're looking at for the rest of spring training. But that is over with. Let's get to the rest of the show. Let's talk about the new acquisitions. Luke Voit and Tyler Naquin are now Brewers. We're going to talk about those guys. We're going to get your reactions as well. You can tweet us as well at Dom_Cotroneo, DOM_COTRONEO. And again, the Old National Bank talking text line is 855-616-1620. Again, 855-616-1620. Old National Bank, get old. Plenty more to come on Brewers Weekly. Live from Phoenix, Arizona, the American Family Fields of Phoenix, I'm Dominic Cotroneo. Brewers getting ready for spring training to kick off on Saturday against the Dodgers. You can listen to that right here with Mr. Baseball, Bob Uecker, on Saturday. That'll be at noon Central Time. Also, it's available on Bally Sports Wisconsin, and I'll be over there in the stats chair as well. Do want to get to the phone lines. We got one caller coming in. James from the South Side. Thanks for hanging out with us on Thursday. What's on your mind?
Well, I think that the Brewers, with all these trades that they made in that, I think we're going to not be able to go repeat again like we did in the 4 years prior to last year. I think it's going to, how do you say the word, that we're going to fall short of this whole thing here, for one. And you were talking about Corbin Burns there. I think Corbin Burns is getting lowballed here is going to hurt the Brewers, because I think that the rest of these players on the team, both new ones and old ones, are going to look and say, well, hey, if that happened to Corbin Burns, what's going to happen to me? And the other thing that I'm going to bring up is that we've been talking about this $300 million that the Brewers are going to get from the, to help with the stadium and that. I think that's going to probably be kind of what the season goes like this year. If the season goes good, maybe we'll get to see the $300 million from how they're going to put it through. But if not, maybe it's going to be pared down a lot on that.
Yeah,
how do you feel about all that?
It's interesting. Thanks for the call, James. On the first topic, the Central's going to be a very competitive division. There's no question about that. The Cardinals have a very good offense. They might have the best 2 through 4, 5 in all of baseball. That's a really potent Goldschmidt, Arenado, Contreras, Edman in that conversation. O'Neill is in that conversation for their 1 through 6. But at the same time, I'm very, very, very questioning their starting pitching. It's kind of the opposite, right, of what the Brewers going on. You got a lot of bounce-back candidates offensively for the Brewers, but they still have the best pitching staff in the division and arguably one of the better pitching staffs in the entire league. So I'm not worried about that so much. I think these two teams, this division, by my book, is going to come down to the last week and a half or so. It is going to be a nail-biter, and I think both these teams match up very, very well. I'm not ready. I've said before, and I'll say it again, I think this team, as it's constructed now, is good enough to win a playoff series, and I believe that they can win the division. Will they? We will see. On the Burns topic, I think it's just not just a Brewers thing, it's a small mid-market thing that lowball is kind of a strong word, but at the same time, it's the business of baseball, right? They have to save money at any point that they can, and I know that's frustrating. It may seem like the right thing to do is just pay the man, but like I said in last week's show, let's be completely honest. Corbin Burns is not going to sign an extension with the Milwaukee Brewers. That was not going to happen before the arbitration case, and that's not going to happen after the arbitration case. He's going to be worth over $30 million a year. He is not going to be getting paid that over a 10-year deal from the Milwaukee Brewers. That's just not happening. So my thought with it is the Brewers had to be shrewd. They were put between a rock and a hard place, and it is what it is. Maybe we'll learn more in the next couple of weeks, but it happened, and it's time to move on. Burns is still a Brewer. And I also want to be clear, Burns is smiling with his teammates in the clubhouse. We chat with him almost every day, just casually, not necessarily with microphones in front of him. Burns is fine, okay? He's absolutely fine. People like to assume things on social media. For us on the ground, he's fine. It's going to be fine. And for the third part of it, with the $290 million, I tried to break it down as best I could in last week's episode. You can listen to that on your podcast feed of choice, Apple, Spotify, or WTMJ.com. That's still a proposal, and that's still in Wisconsin government hands, not the Brewers' hands. That's all in Governor Tony Evers and his Republican legislature that have it in his hands to approve and ratify his budget. That won't even be done for by July. And the big thing with that is a reminder that it's technically an obligation of the state of Wisconsin and the ballpark district to make major capital repairs, and the Brewers have the cosmetic and the smaller stuff. So there is a little ebb and flow. I think I explained that pretty well last week. So that $290 million, that's going to be going on all summer long. So we can pace ourselves when it comes to that. Let's talk about the new guys, though. Thank you for the call, James. The new guys, Luke Voit and Tyler Naquin, were signed this week. Minor league deals, because remember, the 40-man roster is technically full right now. However, they still have to place Aaron Ashby and Justin Wilson on the 60-day IL, because neither one of them are going to be starting the year on the opening day roster, or even on the 40-man for that matter, because when you get placed on the 60-day IL, you are temporarily removed for the 40-man. So there is technically an avenue for Voit and or Naquin to make the team. Let's hear from the change makers. Let's hear from Matt Arnold about acquiring two veterans.
Yeah, really excited. It's a great thing to have competition in camp, and to add two guys like this with the kind of pedigree that they have. Both played on good teams, competitive guys that are coming in hungry, ready to compete, and so we think it's going to be a really good thing for everybody in camp.
So let's talk about Naquin first. Naquin last season split between two clubs in his age 31 season. He hit .229. His on base was under 300. He's a slap hitter, more about, uses his speed, gets the ball on the ground, doesn't hit a ton of homers. He did hit 11 home runs last year, partially thanks to Cincinnati. He hit 19 home runs in 2021 in Cincinnati. Again, thanks to the ballpark, that is Great American Ballpark. And 2021 arguably was one of his better years since leaving Cleveland, and he hasn't played as many games. He played 127 games in 21, 105 games in 2022. He hadn't played that many games since his rookie year in 2016. So health is a good thing going forward for him. He strikes out more than you would like for a top-of-the-order type, corner outfielder type, but want to hear straight from Tyler Naquin and want to hear straight from Craig Counsell about acquiring a guy like Tyler Naquin.
An outfield is the one place maybe we had lacking depth a little bit, so to add a veteran guy to come here and compete for a spot, thought it was the right guy to have.
And he is going to compete. There is definitely room in the corner outfield. Here's what Naquin had to say of what he's bringing.
Just a like I said, just come in, be healthy, and do what I do and bring what I bring to the team.
And what do you bring to the team?
Guess I would say a solid outfielder, a good stick. How about that?
I mean, short, sweet, to the point, right? It gets the job done. Getting a few calls coming in here as well, a couple of texts as well. If you want to join in, 855-616-1620. Again, 855-616-1620. That is the Old National Bank talking text line. Old National Bank, get old. I want to get to Doug, who's been waiting on the line. Doug, what's on your mind tonight?
Yeah, this is Doug and Bearable. Good evening, Dom. Say, I had a couple questions. One, do you think with the new rules that we're going to see like a left fielder ever move over to the right side and make up for that shift that they're not going to allow and leave that whole left field open? And my other question is, can you explain what they're going to do? Every field has to be 95 feet from the beginning of the mound to the outfield to the warning track, or is that correct?
That is correct. So I'm going to talk about the rules a little more in depth a little bit later on, but when it comes to the left fielder part of your question, yes, I absolutely believe there will be teams like Tampa Bay, like Toronto, these aggressive shifting teams moving a left fielder over to right and daring a Joey Gallo and daring somebody to say, there it is, go get it. I absolutely believe that will happen because remember, the shift rule is for infielders. Infielders cannot have three infielders on either side of second base. And the second part of your question about the 95 feet from the end of the mound to the edge of the outfield grass, previously all of the infield dirt dimensions were not uniform. And now with the rules stating the infielders have to have both of their feet start on the infield dirt, baseball wanted to step in and make sure every field had the exact same depth because let's be honest, some places get a little more wear, some places have deeper, dirts maybe playing to their advantages, or some places, for a long time, Rogers Center didn't have infield dirt, so they wanted to make sure that was all acquired and all good to go. Wrigley Field's an older place, Fenway's an older place, where it's kind of getting rounded over the years, so the reason for that is to make sure everything is the same across the board, given the new rule that requires the infielders to have both feet on the infield dirt. Thank you, as always, for listening, Doug. You're one of our loyal ones. I want to get to Luke Voit. We'll talk about him in the next segment. I want to answer a text here on 855-616-1620. This is from John in West Dallas. 3 years ago, the estimated improvements was $70 million. How it's $290 million, Brewers might have a hard sell. The reason it's $290 million, John, is because in part, this extends it beyond 2030 to 2043 for the lease. So that $70 million number you saw, that's getting it to 2030. That's getting it to last over the next 7 years. We've talked about the roof. We've talked about piping. We've talked about sewage stuff and drain water and things of that nature. That $70 million they believe will get them to 2030. But to make sure they can get it beyond 2030 and for a 20-year extension from today's lease is why they're going 290, which also, by the way, would become upwards of $400 million if the Brewers invest it like they plan to invest it, because they have paid off their debt when it comes to actually paying back the taxes and paying back the original taxpayers to build originally Miller Park. They're ahead of that, so they are not operating, at a cost of trying to pay back that original investment because they've invested it in escrow and long-term stocks and things of that nature. We're getting way over our heads now, but we're getting deep in it. We're in the process now. Let's talk about Luke Voit and also the bullpen coming up in the next segment on Brewers Weekly. Talking more about the new acquisitions. We talked Naquin briefly last segment. Talking more Luke Voit this segment. Just to wrap up the thoughts on Naquin, the reason why he's got a shot on this roster, and again, he needs to be added to the 40-man, is there's a lot of youth in the outfield. I know a lot of folks are ready for Sal Frelick to make a chance. A lot of folks are ready to see maybe Joey Wiemer at some point. We also learned this week Tyrone Taylor is a little slowed. He's got an elbow sprain. He's only going to be slowed for about 2 weeks, they feel, trying to calm down his symptoms. Remains to be seen if this is going to be a longer impact thing. Give it 2 weeks and reassess. But, we're still 5 weeks away from opening day. So he's still got time to get healthy in that regard. When it comes to Naquin, it's depth. Like I tweeted, it's depth. You have Jesse Winker. They feel he will play defense at some point this season because he is healthy. I see him mostly as a DH, but I get it. They want to have positional versatility, and you still have Brian Anderson available to play right field in case of emergency. So I think they're working Brian mostly at third base. That's where I've only seen him so far in this first week of position players. Remains to be seen how much he's going to play the outfield. As for Luke Voit, the more I break it down, the more I look at it, the Luke Voit move really creates sort of I don't want to say a push, but kind of an urgency like, hey, Keston, here's another right-handed hitter who doesn't hit lefties very well, that has a track record for power just like you. So it's just kind of who's going to have the better camp sort of thing. But Luke Voit feels healthy. Want to talk to Matt Arnold and also hear from Voit himself about the move and coming here to Milwaukee on a minor league deal.
You're a team that's, for Voit's case, you're suddenly really left-handed. So Voit's case of being a right-handed first baseman, was that some of the draw to bringing him in?
Absolutely, yeah. He certainly has a pathway to fitting here, and we saw him hit a ball on top of the office buildings earlier, so that was pretty exciting. So to add somebody with his kind of background, he did hit 22 home runs last year, so it's certainly in there, and we're really excited to have him.
Yeah, I guess we'll see, but I feel like I have a really good chance. Obviously, another part of the reason I signed here, and I want to play. It's not like I want to be a platoon guy or anything. And we'll see what happens. I still got to go out there, and I think part of the reason this is a minor league deal is because they want to see that I'm healthy and I can go out and obviously play and do some damage. So as long as I'm doing damage and having fun, I always obviously enjoy interacting with the fans and kind of my meathead mentality a little bit. But I just got to be myself and just take care of my body and be in a good spot.
He seems in a great spot, and like I talked about with Matt Arnold, you look at this projected roster of the guys that are on the team, right? Yelich, left-handed on the team. Winker, left-handed on the team. Mitchell, left-handed on the team. If Bryce Terang's on the team, he's left-handed. You've got a switch hitter available in Victor Caratini who will bat left-handed. So what happens when that lefty's on the mound? You got to figure out what to do. Obviously, William Contreras, see, I've done it again. William Contreras is going to catch or DH on those days. And then who knows if Winker's going to face against lefties. Having a right-handed guy, granted his splits are reversed, not great, but he mentioned that he was cleaning up some knee issues last season. Seems like he's healthy and good to go. So Luke Voit, I think, if I was picking between the two, if only one could move on, I think Luke Voigt's got a better shot to make this team. He's a natural first baseman, right? Keston Hiura is not a natural first baseman. Bigger body, easier to scoop, understands the nuance of the position. Keston's out of options, though, so that gives the urgency in his favor, and Keston's obviously already on the roster, whereas Voit is need to be added. So there's that other caveat, too. Competition creates excitement, and that's what Craig Counsell mentioned earlier when we talked about last segment. Competition is good, and if that makes one guy rise above the other, then so be it. It should be an exciting camp to figure out. We finally have some real position battles shaping up. We weren't exactly sure what was going on, but looks like backup first base is a position battle. Who's going to play third the majority of the time? Who's going to play second the majority of the time in right field? Those look like the main position battles, aside from the biggest gap and the biggest figure out as far as most candidates available, that is the bullpen. The bullpen, look, it's going to take probably a month to figure out the roles and figure out whatever team they roll out with coming out of camp is most likely not going to be the camp, not going to be the unit that finishes the season for the Brewers, right? Especially in the bullpen. Who do we know will be in the bullpen this year? I know Devin Williams will be in the bullpen. I know Matt Bush will be in the bullpen. I know Peter Strzelecki, Hobie Milner will be in the bullpen. Those are the four absolutely knows. I put Adrian Hauser on the next one up as far as probably in the bullpen, but not because he wouldn't be on the team, but he may or may not be a sixth starter, especially with the Aaron Ashby news. Maybe he rolls into that Aaron Ashby role. That's one guy that I would think of to maybe put in that role. Besides that, it's kind of wide open. Is Bryce Wilson going to make it? Is Yoel Payamps going to make it? Javi Guerra going to make it? And then beyond that, you've got the Rule 5 pick in Gus Varland. We saw him throw a bullpen today. You've also got Ethan Small now. His hat is in this ring. Tyson Miller, who was acquired off waivers from the Rangers this past offseason. He's a candidate as well. So I want to hear from Craig Counsell about the chance for Ethan Small to make an appearance coming out of the bullpen this season.
Ethan Small will be as a reliever, treated as a reliever here. but multiple inning reliever, and so kind of somewhere in the middle of that. And then at some point we'll have to figure out what we're going to do with Ethan. But we don't have a lot of left-handers, and that's good. And from his perspective, there's some opportunity there. And then he needs to show us something too, and he's on board with that, and is on board with pitching out of the bullpen here. And so far it's been, I think we've all liked, and he's liked what's going on.
So for Ethan, if you don't recall, made his big league debut last season against the Cubs, completely lost the zone. Command has always been his bugaboo. He had 4 walks against the Cubs, only worked into the 3rd inning. Went back down to the minors, got things going toward the late June, early July. Then he came back up to the big leagues against the Twins and struggled again. Had 4 walks in a start that worked into the 4th inning. He allowed only 3 earned runs, got a no decision in that one as well. But then from there, when he went back down to Nashville, it was not as pretty. In fact, over his next 6 starts, he went 0-2 with an ERA over 8.03, 18 walks in 24 innings. So after that, they moved him to the bullpen. Things worked out better for the bullpen. In fact, in his appearances out of the pen, he did not walk a single batter. So there's a little bit of good news. Maybe these shorter stints will help him lock in and get back on track. It plays the fastball up because he's not a velo guy. He's a deception guy. Something like that could really help him. In his 6 appearances out of the bullpen, 5 2/3, 5 hits, no walks, 6 strikeouts. Opponents hit 238 off of him. So something to keep an eye on. Also did not allow a home run at the end of the season last year. Confidence is a fleeting thing. It's hard to keep track of. But he's certainly a candidate for the bullpen. This is going to be one of those position battles. We just need to see games happen to figure out if one guy's taking a leg up over another. But I've got those 5 guys on my hand, right? Devin Williams, Peter Strzelecki, Hobie Milner, Matt Bush, and Adrian Hauser. I've got those 5 guys in my bullpen. That probably leaves 2 or 3 more spots to figure out who's going to slot in where. Plenty of time to figure out what that is going to look like. Let's talk about one of the newest Brewers in the next segment, and that's not Voit or Naquin, but Robert Gasser, a guy that hasn't had a lot of pub on him. Got a chance to catch up with him this week at camp. Don't go anywhere. This is Brewers Weekly.
This is Brewers Weekly on WTMJ.
Rolling on with Brewers Weekly. We're with you till the top of the hour at 9. I'm Dominic Cotroneo, live from Phoenix, as we're getting ready for spring training games to start on Saturday, noon. You can hear it right here on WTMJ with Mr. Baseball, Bob Uecker. Got a chance to catch up with Robert Gasser. If you recognize the name, he was acquired in the Padres deal for Josh Hader last year. Originally a sandwich pick, the B round, back in 2021 by the Padres. He was 71st overall. He's only 23 years old. He'll turn 24 at the end of May. His pitch is really great out. His best pitch, his slider. He's also got a cutter to go with that. He explains it very well. He went straight to Double-A last year, too. He made 9 starts in the Brewers organization, 27 starts total in 2022. Made it through the entire season healthy. Strikeouts, double digits per 9. Walks went up a little bit with the Brewers, but maybe they're working on things with him. But without further ado, let's catch up with one of the newer guys, Robert Gasser, in a prospect preview here on Brewers Weekly.
Robert, obviously the trade happens last year. You come to a new organization, go straight to Double-A, rising in the ranks. What were those first few days in the Brewers organization like for you?
They were pretty positive, I was just obviously trying to figure out, just new names, new faces. Just kind of, honestly, the coaching staff and I were just trying to get to know each other and just figure out, what works. But, honestly, it worked out well pretty quickly. So, early on it was pretty easy. Really, it was just, trying to get comfortable with all these new guys.
When you arrived, has your repertoire changed? What did you arrive with, and what have you learned about what you were bringing every given night when you're starting?
Yeah, so actually, going into spring training last year with the Padres, it was I was trying to revamp my arsenal a little bit, but I kind of figured it out as the season went on, and this year I kind of showed up with the same one, just trying to optimize it, and it's like a fastball, changeup, curveball, or I guess a slider and a cutter. So honestly, I'm just trying to keep those same pitches and just keep finding them and just try to figure out how to get hitters out with that mix.
What are you looking at? Because we all know today's game has a lot more numbers than people are realizing, and obviously a lot of folks talk about the pitching lab here in Milwaukee, but what do you like to look at when it comes to your pitch design? What are things that you try to refine and look at when you're actually getting deep in the process?
For me, horizontal break's a huge factor. Just trying to make pitches not do the same thing and just make them the separation great. And I think that's something that I do pretty well already. So the changeup and the slider, just keeping them, making sure they're moving a lot. And then with the heater, it's just making sure I'm staying behind it, and not get on the side of it, because when I get on the side of it, it kind of drops a little bit. But if I stay behind it, it gets some good ride, and I can get some good separation, even mix in a two-seam if I'm doing that well.
And that two-seam's probably got some arm side going on, got some sink going on there as well.
Yeah, it's a little more similar to my changeup. Changeup's a little hard, so I try to not throw it as much to righties. Just use the changeup predominantly. But against lefties, I think it's a pitch that I can use and get hitters out with.
Are you sick of having to explain to people that velo doesn't get everybody out all the time? Velo's nice, but how do you manage your velo? You always seem like have a little bit left in the tank as well. How do you explain to somebody who's like, well, look, not everybody throws 98. It doesn't need to be that way for everybody.
Yeah, obviously velo is kind of king nowadays. That's the number that pops up and everyone looks at. But if you're able to mix speeds and keep hitters off balance, you got a great chance of getting hitters out. It's something honestly I had to learn a while ago, because I didn't always throw hard, and kind of had to learn how to pitch more than just blow hitters up. So once I got lucky then in college, and I gained a couple miles per hour, and it definitely helps out the arsenal. But keeping hitters off balance is the name of the game.
As Corbin Burns chimes in there, and Woodruff chimes in there as well, the thing that Craig Counsell told us as well, that young guys should use their eyes and ears more than maybe their bodies and learning in their first big league camp. A guy like Woodruff, your locker mates here with Burns and Woodruff right next to you. What are the things that you're seeing and learning and hearing of trying to be a big league pitcher?
Yeah, I think for those guys that I've seen so far, just sticking to their process. They show up every day, and it seems like they do the same thing and just are like consistent with what they do. And I think honestly that's been my something that I've learned is like consistency wins, and preparation is the best way to get confidence, especially as a starter. Week in, week out, just being consistent in your preparation, it gives you the best opportunity to go out there and be successful.
Well, all the best. Thanks for your time, and best of luck this camp.
Appreciate it.
Really, really appreciated the time from Robert Gasser. Good kid. Obviously, he's not going to be on the big league club this year. Probably bound for Nashville, and see what happens. And he's somebody that the Brewers obviously admire to acquire him from the Josh Hader trade. So we'll see his development from afar down in Nashville with the crew there. We're going to talk a little rules and then wrap things up with Vegas coming up near the top of the hour. 855-616-1620. Again, 855-616-1620. The Old National Bank talking text line. Old National Bank, get old. Doug saying they're grooming Gasser to replace Burns. Look, tap the brakes. Burns is still here for 2 more years. You always need pitching. You always need pitching depth, all right? It's not that deep, but Gasser's going to sound like a solid piece for the Brewers moving forward. They still got Lowry, still got Burns, still got Woodruff, still got plenty of arms to choose from. You can never have enough arms. Let's talk about rules coming up next. Rolling on with Brewers Weekly, getting to the text line here. Steve, you're absolutely right. Steve from Milwaukee helping me out with time zones. Time zones are hard. 2 o'clock, first pitch Saturday. I am currently an hour behind you, and I gave an extra hour behind you for some reason. But 2 o'clock first pitch Saturday with Mr. Baseball Bob Uecker here on WTMJ. 1 o'clock here locally if you're on the ground in Arizona. Another text coming in asking about, when they traded Hunter Renfroe, the explanation was creating space for young outfielders. Now they acquired Jesse Winker, Taylor, and Naquin. When it comes to this, and I know you're perplexed about, top 3 National League defensive right fielder, now have a horrible outfielder. Look, Winker's not going to play a lot in the outfield. I truly believe it. He's not going to play a ton in the outfield. Naquin still has to earn a spot on the team. Sal Frelick is still very much a candidate to make this opening day roster. The reason why they traded Renfroe, for one, obviously it's a salary savings, and for 2, it makes room for Frelick, makes room for Weimer, it makes room for one day Churio to easily make it to the big leagues. It's a more expendable piece. Would you rather have, if Naquin has to start the season and then at some point Frelick or Weimer comes up, it's easier to expend somebody like that than it is Hunter Renfroe and trying to find a trade partner and things of that nature for the investment you put in with him. That's part of the reason why I really like what the Brewers did with the outfield, personally. You can have your own reservations, but we'll see when games actually happen. One thing I'm excited to see when games happen, this new pitch clock. We got to see it today with the live ABs. I tweeted this as well. I hadn't seen it in person yet. I'd only heard from my friends in the minor leagues that they love it. Seeing it in person and seeing how pitchers reacted to it during live ABs, it felt natural. It felt so easy to follow. Didn't look like anybody was rushed whatsoever. It was a very natural flow. It wasn't like, oh my God, here comes another. It was natural pacing of what you would like a game to go. Not everybody's throwing like Brent Suter or Wade Miley. Devin Williams, his tempo is up, and it seems under control. Here's what Craig Counsell has to say about pitchers getting used to it.
And again, still the games are going to be the best teachers, and the games are, we want mistakes. You have to be okay with the mistakes in the games because they'll teach you something. But I think what the pitcher has to feel is what is the pace? What does the increased pace feel like? What's weird is really we're speeding them up by 2 seconds, in most cases. But it's to them that's a big deal, and there's an adjustment. It doesn't feel like that's an adjustment, but there's a little adjustment there.
Corbin Burns even took a second to flip it and say, hey, I can use it in my advantage, trying to make hitters feel uncomfortable. In fact, I saw Matt Bush try a couple of quick pitches today to catch the hitter off guard, but here's what Corbin has to say about using the clock to his advantage.
Maybe a little bit quicker pace. We've had multiple discussions about it and some meetings about it, and I think it's something that pitchers, if you're prepared for it, you're ready for it, it's something you can take advantage of. Big thing you'll hear these hitters say is about getting comfortable in the box, and our job as pitchers is to make them uncomfortable. So I think the pitch clock and kind of forcing that tempo is another way we can make them uncomfortable in the box.
And Corbin's not a slow pitcher by any means. I'm really liking what I'm hearing about the Brewers adjusting to it, getting some athleticism on the shifts. Eric Lauer was kind of bummed about the disengagement rule, about you can only step off twice, and then on the third time, if you don't pick off the guy, it's a balk. And he's a guy that has a great move. So he's a little disappointed, but like Craig Counsell said, when games happen, we'll make the adjustments. We're 5 weeks away from games, and there's plenty of time to learn the new process with the rules. We'll have more to talk about with rules once we actually see it going on the field, but let's reserve judgment until we actually have a quantifiable sample size to move forward with. Let's talk about Vegas and wrap up the show. Coming up next, this is Brewers Weekly. Wrapping up the show here, got about a minute, 90 seconds left here. Want to talk about some of the Vegas odds that have come out about the Brewers and about the National League and things of that nature. Justin Pottinger, you can pot yourself up, our producer on the show tonight. What do you think the over-under on the win total is for the Brewers this season?
Let's do 82.
Oh, come on, have some faith. You think they're going to be barely a 500 team? Come on, man. 85.5. So I ask you, over under 85.5.
Let's go over. I'll go over for the Brewers.
Okay, yeah, okay, I agree. So they're not the favored team in the Central. The Cardinals are listed at 88.5. Remember, the Brewers won 86 games last year. I think 88, 85.5 is a good number. Over means it's going to be a solid season, and they'll be competitive in the division. Again, the Cardinals are the favorites at minus 130 for the division. Then Brewers at plus 175. Then Cubs at plus 450, and then the Pirates and the Reds are eons away. As for the favorites for the National League pennant, this is where they lost me, and we'll wrap up the show with this. San Francisco is favored ahead of the Brewers, and they play in a harder division. That makes no sense to me. The Giants are at plus 1,600, the Brewers are at plus 2,000, the Cardinals are at plus 1,200. The favorites for the National League pennant, of course, the New York Mets. Also, the Dodgers right there, plus 350 and plus 375. Thank you so much for listening. For Justin Pottinger, I'm Dominic Cotroneo. Keep on swinging.